Within IDS, we can change our view preferences to allow us to customize our screen. To do this, if we go up to View in the main menu bar, scroll down to View Preferences, our View Preference dialog box comes up. In our preference settings, we have three tabs at the top: a General tab, a Hoop Original Point tab, and a Canvas Setting tab. Within the General tab, we have an autosave function, and with that check marked, you can enter in any interval you would like the program to automatically save. Now what this does is that while you're working on your project, in this case, every 5 minutes, it will automatically save to a temporary file folder. This is to back up your design should any crash happen, if the program turns off, or if your computer turns off for any reason. What the program does, it saves it into a temporary file folder, and if the program does crash and you open it back up, it'll say, "This program was not shut down properly. Would you like to load up the backup design?" And that backup design will be that temporary file. You can change the interval to however many minutes that you would like. Just keep in mind that 1 minute it will pause your program every single minute. 5 minutes is the default, and you can do that as high or as low as you want, or you can turn the autosave feature on or off. Now with the autosave feature, if you do properly close out of your program, the temporary file will go away because you are properly closing out of the program. To change that autosave interval, if you just left click, hold, and highlight over the number, it will highlight the number, and then you can type in whichever interval you want. Or if you want to turn the autosave off, you can left click on the check mark and it will turn to no check mark, meaning autosave is off. I recommend keeping the default settings, which autosave is on, and to save every 5 minutes. The next box over is the measurement unit. You can choose to view your measurement settings in millimeters or inches, and whatever is chosen will have a black dot within that option. Just to change it, you can just left click and it will change that option. In these training videos, we will be using the millimeter measurement unit. The next box over is Adjust to Life Size. With Adjust to Life Size, this allows you to calibrate your screen. The on-screen ruler, you will need to match up with a ruler that you place next to the screen and line up. So what you do is you take a ruler, place it up against this on-screen ruler, and line up the numbers, whether you're in centimeters or whether you're in inches. To expand the ruler, you have 2 double arrows pointing to the right and a single arrow pointing to the right. The single arrow will do smaller increments, as the double arrow will do larger increments to expand it. To contract the ruler, you can use the double arrows pointing to the left or the single arrow pointing to the left. The double arrows will do larger increment, where the single arrow will do a smaller increment. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that these are lined up properly so that when you're viewing at 100%, you are truly viewing at 100%. The next option is using the thread library. If you choose to use the thread library, make sure that is checkmarked. Within your thread library options, you have different libraries that you can choose from, and you can use the drop-down arrow to view all the different libraries. To change the library, you just left-click on the library that you would like to show, and that will then show at the bottom of your screen. At the bottom of my screen, you can see here, this is where my thread library shows. With Display Thread Bar checkmarked, it means that it will show you that thread bar down at the bottom. You can also choose to ignore the group, which I always select. That way you will show all your library or all your colors within that thread library. With Use Thread Library in Image Manipulation, with that checkmarked and you just place a left click, that means that when you bring in a design or bring in an image, it will match the closest color threads to that design or the colors in that design. So we'll do the color matching for you. The next one is Autogeneration. Autogenerate after punching and stitch property edit. What that means is that if we are doing manual punching or we are doing stitch property edits, as soon as we hit the OK or Enter or the Confirm key, it will automatically put in the stitches where necessary or change the stitches where necessary. With that deselected, after you do manual punch or you do any stitch properties editing, then you will need to hit the Go button down at the lower right hand side of your screen, or that Go button on the Create toolbar. The next box is Remove Compensation in 3D View. With that check marked, when we are in the 3D view, it will remove the pull compensation of the fabric to whichever measurement you input. In here, the default is 0.4. Now, pull compensation, that is the stitches that extends beyond the actual line of programming, meaning that if you have a square, your stitches will extend beyond the square to accommodate for push and pull of the fabric as well as for the sinking of the stitches. When you view the design in the 3D view, it will take away that compensation of fabric to give you more of a rendered look. This will not change your stitch settings, but will just change the look on the screen. I recommend to highlight, left click, hold and drag to highlight and change that to 0.2 millimeters. I believe that gives you a better view of the design when you are in the rendered 3D view. So remember, this is only in the 3D view. The Play Shadow Color. With the shadow color, that is according to the stitch player, and in our stitch player we can show a shadow or we can show a background of the design while it's stitching out, so we know where the stitches are going to lay down. To change the shadow color, just left click on the white color chip and you can change it to whatever color you like. You can change it in the basic colors, or you can go to the Define Custom Colors and change it there. Once you're happy, just press OK and it will change it. This is only in the stitch player. The Edit dialog. Do not show the Edit dialog box for all images supported by IDS. With that check marked, that will bypass the Edit dialog box if you have a design or an image that is supported by the IDS program. And we are talking about image files. If the design or image is not supported by IDS, you will automatically go to the Edit dialog box. The Edit dialog box allows you to edit images in other programs such as CorelDRAW, Adobe Photoshop, Adobe Illustrator, external graphics programs that you do have in your computer. So the Edit dialog box is for all image types, but if you don't want to show that for images that are supported by IDS, you can keep that check marked. The next tab at the top is the Hoop/Original Point tab. To get to those options, just left click on the Hoop Original Point tab and it will take us to some new options. Here is where you can set your hoop type to show within your screen if you choose to show it. First of all, just to show the hoop on your screen or on your design workspace, down at the bottom right hand side here we have a Show Hoop option. Without a check mark next to it, that means our hoop is not showing. With a check mark, our hoop will show. And you have two different hoop types to choose from. You can choose from a custom hoop or a machine hoop type. In order to do a custom hoop, you can input your own parameters, and custom hoops are usually hoops that are maybe aftermarket hoops or specialty hoops that you have for your machine that are not within the machine manufacturer's list. You can set the width and height, and remember we are in millimeters, so we can set the width and height individually just by left clicking, holding and dragging over the number and inputting our own numbers. We can set them individually, or if you have a hoop that is square or circle, if you check mark 1:1 aspect ratio, if you just change the width, it'll automatically change the height. And in here, I'll just type in 150. and that will automatically change the height as necessary. There's a bar up here between rectangle and circle, and what that bar is, that changes the corner percentage. You'll notice that most hoops do not have a 90-degree corner. They mostly have a rounded corner. With your scroll bar between rectangle and circle, it goes from 0% all the way up to 100%, where 100% would be a full circle and rectangle or 90-degree corner would be 0. Most hoops that you do see with rounded corners, it will be at about a 30% or so. So those are your custom hoop settings. You can also choose a machine manufacturer just by left-clicking inside machine hoop type. And when you left-click inside machine hoop type, custom hoop goes away, and now you can go into your machine manufacturers. And what these are folder trees that you can expand or contract. Right now I'm on the baby lock or the brother, and I'm just going to contract those just by left-clicking on the minus sign, and it will contract those up. I will click on the Prodigy just by left-clicking on the plus sign next to Prodigy, and it will expand the Prodigy options. I have border frames, circular frames, jacket back frames, and wide cap frames. If I'd like to display a circular frame, I can left-click inside the plus sign next to circular, and I have all these options to choose from. I have a 90, 120, 150, 180, and 190. And these represent in millimeters the size of the frame. So a 9 centimeter or a 12 centimeter, 150 centimeter, so on and so forth. Now after we choose a frame, this is the frame that will be showing on screen. But we have some other tools available in the machine hoop types that we can change. The first option that I'd like to show you is that we can add hoops within our hoop types. Now depending upon where you are in the hierarchy of hoops, whether or not you're on Prodigy or circular, this is where you would add the hoop under. So if I were to add a hoop under Prodigy, I could add a whole category along with a hoop type in that category. So what we'll do is we're going to add Prodigy hoops for an aftermarket attachment. So I'm just going to click on Prodigy, and to add a category as well as a hoop, I will click on the plus button right underneath. If I left click on the plus button, it allows me to input a type name. So what I will do is I will just write custom, and then I have a display name. So custom will actually show where you see border frame, circular, jacket back, and super wide, or extra wide cap frame. Then the display name will be like this under 90, 120, 150, 180, 190. So the display name, I will just type in test. Then in here I can set my parameters for that hoop. So let's say we want to do a 30% corner, and the width and the height will be 120. So this will be like a 12 centimeter, more like a square hoop. As soon as I press OK, it will add that hoop within my Prodigy, and you can see that I added a custom hoop and a test hoop. If I'd like to delete this, I can select whichever one I'd like to delete. If I'd like to just delete test, or if I'd like to delete the whole category of custom, I can left click on what I want to delete and then click on the minus button. Now be careful of this because it doesn't give you a warning when you do want to delete. It will just go ahead and delete it. So I'll click on the minus button, and when I click on the minus button, left click, it will delete that out of there. So let's go back down to Prodigy, and you can see when I expand it, the custom goes away. I can also modify frames if I'd like to modify the name or the size or whatever I'd like to do. I click on the frame that I'd like to modify. While it is selected, I'll click on the three buttons. When I click on the three buttons or the three dots, just left click on that button. It will allow me to change certain settings of what I have selected on. I can't change the name of the category because it is grayed out, or the name of the factory, which is grayed out. I would have to choose, if I would want to change the name of the manufacturer, I'd have to select the manufacturer and then hit edit. But here I will change the display name, and if I change the display name, I can change it to whatever I'd like. And what I'm going to name it here is I'm just going to name it as left chest, because maybe that's what I use my 120 hoops for most of the time. I can also change the parameters within here, but I will just press OK, and we'll see here that instead of 120, it now says left chest. So the add or the plus sign button will add a hoop within whatever category or whatever machine you are selected in. The minus button will allow you to delete hoops, or the 3 dots or 3 buttons will allow you to edit the hoop that you are selected on. Also, underneath you have an original point box. You can choose to show your original point, which would show your start and stop point of the design on screen. This is denoted by a green triangle and a red cross. Green triangle is your start point and red cross is your stop point. So that will just show it on screen. With Auto Center on, it will automatically center your design in that it will start and stop in the design center. It doesn't necessarily mean that the design will start stitching in the center, but it will start in the center, maybe move, and then start stitching. And then it will end in the center. The majority of your designs you will probably want to start and stop in the design center. You can also start and stop at the bottom center of the design with a vertical offset, meaning that even going below the actual bottom of the design. A lot of times we do use this when we're designing caps. So we'll just select here with Design Center, and we'll leave Show Original Point on. The maximum work area. With that maximum work area, this allows you to change your work area. I suggest leaving this the same, as well as leaving Auto Center on. If you do deselect Auto Center, you are allowed to change your original points and your hoop center, but I suggest leaving this on and having your designs Auto Center. And 1000 by 1000 maximum work area is about a 40 by 40 inch area that you can work in the software. Most machines in one single hooping do not go above a 40 by 40, so you should be okay there. The last tab that we can change is the Canvas Setting tab. This changes the background on your workspace. You can choose to change the background to show a canvas, etc. So let's left click on the Canvas Setting icon, or the Canvas Setting tab, and we click on that. We can change the background color. Now the background color is what we see on screen right now. The default is yellow. To change that background color, just left click on the color button, and when we left click on the color button, we can change it to a basic color, and what I'm actually going to do is change it to a custom color. I click on the gray that I like, and then go to Define Custom Colors, and use this arrow on the right hand side, and left click, hold, and drag that up to a lighter gray. As soon as I'm done, I'll press OK. When I press OK, it changes that color chip, but it doesn't actually change the background because we have yet to press OK on our view preferences. The view color, that next box down, actually has to do with the work area options that you have set in the Hoop Original Point tab. If you do change the maximum work area, or the area that you want to limit the embroidery to, if you click on Canvas Setting, you can change the view color to a different color. So the background color will be your embroidery design space, and your view color will be the space that you are limiting or that you're excluding. You can also change the grid options. You can choose to have no grid at all, have a dot grid, which would put a dot at each intersection point according to the spacing, or line grid, which is showing up right now. With the line grid showing, I'm going to keep that selected. If you would like to change it, all you have to do is place your cursor inside the radio button and left click to change. You can change the spacing of the grid, and in here I'm going to actually left click, hold and drag to select the number and change that to 12.7, as 12.7 is about a half an inch. 25.4 millimeters is an inch. We can also change the color, and I'll left click on that color button, left click once, change the color to white, press OK, and that will change the color of the grid. You can see again it's not changing the color of that grid in the background because we have yet to press the OK button. With the snap to grid, when I have that selected, if I am moving an object or if I'm using my stitch manual punch tools, then it will actually snap the point that I make to the closest intersection point or move the design to that closest intersection point. I will leave that off for now. In addition, we can also select Use Canvas. With Use Canvas, that will show the canvas in the background or a fabric in the background, and we have all these different canvases that we can choose from just by left clicking on the canvas, and it will show a color swatch of the canvas. We can actually change the color swatch of the canvas by changing the RGB values, which is the red, green, blue values. As we left click, hold, and drag the slider bar on the RGB, you can see that actually changed the color of the canvas that we want to show in the background. Underneath there, you also see something that says Stitch Property. Within the Stitch Property, you have the ability to save your favorite settings and then to change those settings for each job that you do. We'll discuss this in another video. You can also add or delete canvases, meaning that you can add swatches. If you click on Add, that will take you to your computer directory where that swatch is, well, that will take you to your computer directory, and there you can navigate to where the swatch is stored, click on that swatch, and then press OK. Delete will delete the canvas that you are selected on within the canvas settings. You can also scan directly into the canvas settings just by clicking Scan to Canvas. This will actually open up your scanning program. You would scan the canvas in there, and then after you scan the canvas and hit the Accept button or the Scan button, whichever is the affirmative, then it will actually scan it right into your program. The suggested fabric size scan should be no larger than 236 by 236 pixels or 0.6 by 0.6 inches in size and between 300 and 400 dpi. The reason is that when you do scan it scans in a little swatch of the canvas and then it repeats that canvas over and over in the background. So if we're happy with our settings, as soon as we hit the OK button, we left click on OK, that will actually save all the preference settings that we have selected within the General tab, the Hoop Original Point tab, and the Canvas Setting tab. So we press OK, and you can see some things change on my screen. On my screen, we can see that the hoop has changed, or we are now showing a hoop. You can see that red circular hoop showing on our screen. It's a little hard to see on the screen because of my canvas that I have selected, but that is my center point of the design where it will start and stop in the design, a green triangle and red cross. We can also see that our knit is showing in the background, that green knit, and it's a little hard to see as well, but we do have the grid. We changed the grid in that we are changing it to a white grid and we have increased the spacing. There are ways to turn these options on or off just on the fly, but this actually only changes it on the current document that we're on. If we'd like to change it for all new documents that we open, we'll have to go to the View Preference settings. To turn the hoop on or off on the fly within the document that you have open, there's an icon on your View toolbar, which is Hide or View Hoop. With that pressed in, the hoop is showing. With that left clicked, the hoop is not showing. You can also turn off the canvas in the background by the hide view canvas icon. So if we left click on that, when we click on hide the canvas, we can see that instead of that yellow, we have now changed it to gray. We can also change the viewing of the grid with the hide view grid, so we can turn that grid on or off. If we'd like to change it for all new documents that we open, we'll have to go back to the view preferences. So we'll go to view and then view preferences. And let's go to our hoop original point. Let's go to our canvas setting and turn off use canvas and then press OK. When we turn that off, our canvas does disappear in the background. So now every time we open a new document, it will open with these settings that we have selected. We can also change the way that our grid is lining up on our design by going up to the upper left-hand corner where our two ruler bars meet. Where our two ruler bars meet, there is a gray box, and if we left-click hold and drag on that gray box, bring that into screen, we can see we have two meeting lines. One is a horizontal and one is a vertical. If I'd like my grid to line up with that center point, I will place my cursor over that center point, or over that design center, let go of my left click, and my grid will shift to that point. Now to save all of these settings, so next time that we do open IDS, we'll go to File and Exit and stop the program. Once we close out of the program and restart it, all these settings will be saved next time we do open the program, so we don't have to go back in and change our view preferences.